Alright, this is the final take. I'm getting sick of this. Oh my god. Don't ask why I'm outside. Real quickly, I want to say thank you for 1,000 subscribers. It means a lot to me that people would even click on my video rather than pressing the subscribe button, especially since I've only been doing this for like a little over 3 months. So thank you, and let's get right into it. So regarding the list, this is brutally subjective. It's almost crazy how subjective this list is. I rank these based on how many times I have went back to them. So it's not based on the musicality of it or anything of that really. This is very personal. It's a very personal list. So I just want to hammer that out of the way. So any pretentious people, I'm not here for it today. But here's how it's gonna go. I'm just gonna rank the album, talk about it very briefly, and then mention my favorite song, and then move on. And I think albums in the top 10 I'm gonna give a little bit more analysis on, maybe, but in general I want to keep this video pretty brief. And finally, my takes on these albums are going to drastically change over as time goes on. So if you're watching this a year from now, just know that I probably will agree with any criticism that you have. Coming in at 40, I have Slint's Spiderland. I don't mind this album, and I understand its influence, and I respect it a lot. I just haven't found myself returning to it a lot. Maybe it's because of the spoken word. My favorite track off of this is Breadcrumb Trail. The main melody behind that song has just been stuck in my head, and I admire the story behind it as well, with the whole kind of love story in an amusement park, and I feel like the instrumental follows the chaos behind those lyrics very well. Coming in at 39, I have Stereolab's Dots and Loops. I actually did enjoy this one quite a bit, but if I had to describe it, I would probably say it is sophisticated elevator music. I feel like that's a good way to put it. It's not boring. You know, although I did almost fall asleep during the 17-minute track, I wouldn't call it boring. I really wouldn't. I feel like if I were to take acid and then walk into an elevator, I feel like this would be the music that would come out of that. My favorite track off here is Ticker Tape of the Unconscious. That track just spoke to me. I don't know why. Coming in at 38, I have Pavement's Slanted and Enchanted. And the only reason why I didn't put it at 40 is because of the track Here. I love Here. I love it. Must have went back to this song countless amounts of times already. Just the whole vibe behind it as well. It's just so unlike anything else on the album really, so that's kind of probably why I gravitated towards it so much. So for 37, 36, and 35, I'm just going to spoil it real briefly that these are all King Crimson albums. I just don't find myself replaying it as much, so I feel like I can't really put it higher, even just because, you know, it's prog rock, and I guess the musicality of it is more impressive and better than other music. I'm not going to follow that rule. So coming in at 37, I have Lizard. Out of like the 6 albums I've reacted to by King Crimson, this kind of just felt like the most forgettable one a little bit. Although I admire that a song can even be over 20 minutes. I just haven't went back to it. My favorite track off of Lizard has to be Lady of the Dancing Water. I just found that track so tranquil, and I actually do return to that track on a frequent basis as well. Coming in at 36, I have Islands by them as well. This was actually one of my favorite King Crimson albums for a minute. I went back to it a few times. I just kind of felt myself drifting away from it, but I do appreciate it a lot. I love the album cover. I feel like this album would go really well in like a field of flowers, you know what I'm saying? My favorite track off this has to be the title track, probably. Coming in at 35, I have Lark's Tongue and Aspic. A lot of y'all might hate me for this because I know that this album is loved, but I found myself experiencing this album more than enjoying it. And I have re-listened to it maybe 2 or 3 times since, and a lot of the music on here is just kind of hard for my ears to digest, even though I understand just the musicality behind it is very impressive and everything like that, but I just haven't found myself returning to it as much. I don't know if it's because of my age. Favorite track on here has to be Book of Saturday. I love that track, and I do go back to that one a lot. Coming in at 34, I have Genesis, Selling England by the Pound. Another album that I kind of just feel out of touch with. That's why I haven't really went back to it as much. I do appreciate all of the songwriting on here, especially songs like Cinema Show and More Fool Me. I like Cinema Show because it kind of displays the mindset behind a girl going on a date versus a guy going on a date, and the goals that they have for each other. And but I don't know, I kind of have one back to it. Coming in at 33, I have Discipline by King Crimson. I appreciate a lot of the new wave aspects on this a lot, and I think that this album does have a much more recognizable sound compared to the other King Crimson albums. So for that, I did put it a little bit higher. I like the track about New York City. The track Monte Kudasai might be one of my favorite King Crimson songs in general. I just find that track so chill and just so laid back. I've definitely went back to that song a lot. Just the story and songwriting is just perfect on that. Coming in at 32, I have Remain in Light by Talking Heads. Y'all might hate me for this. But I just don't be listening to this. Like, I understand why people love this so much. Like, a lot of people like this album. And I do too. My favorite track on this has to be Once in a Lifetime. I don't know. I've heard that song in a lot of different places, and I just find it kind of nostalgic. Very bubbly production. I also like the Overload as well, but it just kind of reminds me too much of Joy Division. So whenever I listen to the Overload, I kind of just turn it off and then go listen to Joy Division. Coming in at 31, I have Animal Collective's Merriweather Post Pavilion. I found this album kind of top heavy a little bit. The first 4 tracks on this, I love. But then, like, I don't know, my appeal for the album just kind of goes downhill after that. Favorite track has to be My Girls, and I really do like the meaning behind Also Frightened, kind of a song to his wife or his girlfriend, talking about the fears that they have when it comes to raising children and having to accept that, that they're going to be their own people, that they're going to make their own decisions, and that you're not going to be there all the way for them. Coming in at 30, I have Boards of Canada's Tomorrow's Harvest. This album is terrifying. But I do like it a lot. I do like how this album is kind of like what's the word called? A palindrome? I don't know. And how, like, the track list is supposed to be, like, listened to, like, differently. I wish I knew that going into it, because I think I would have liked the album a lot more. And I did listen to the album in the correct order that it's supposed to be in, and I do completely see it. Favorite track on this has to be Sundown. The only reason why I put it kind of low is that the song Palace Posse I don't like. And yeah, coming in at 29, I have Duster's Stratosphere. This is just the kind of album that you can just turn off your brain to, you know what I mean, and just listen to your emotions and just kind of feel them out. I was talking about how I wanted more meaning to a lot of the songs on here when I first reviewed it, but then people in the comments kind of convinced me that a lot of the songs don't need to have meaning, and that they just need to have, like, a certain vibe to it, and that kind of changed my perspective on it. Favorite track on here is Gold Dust. I love Gold Dust. It's just been an earworm ever since I have listened to it. Coming out of 28, I have King Crimson's Red. Very intense album, and I'm impressed that I'm able to stick with it. I put this higher than the King Crimson albums that I had before it, because I love the song One More Red Nightmare. It's probably my favorite King Crimson song, if I'm being honest with you. I love how his vocals start so spontaneously on that, and the energy behind that song is just unbeatable, to be honest. I think Starless might be, if I'm being objective, I think Starless might be one of their best songs I've heard by them. I mean, yeah, I don't know why I have this so low. I'll probably hate myself in the future for putting it at 28, but I mean, right now, that's just where it is. Coming in at 27, I have Talk Talk's Spirit of Eden. I was literally floating. I felt like I was levitating during this whole album. This music makes me want to go to church. I'm certainly never going to do heroin after listening to this. I loved his vocals throughout the whole album. I thought it was amazing. I was just put in a trance for 40 minutes. Favorite track on here has to be Eden. Has to be one of my favorite songs I have listened to on this channel so far. Coming in at 26 is My Bloody Valentine's Loveless. I like this album a lot. But it is very tolling on my ears. Very hard for me to listen to this start to finish without having a headache after. Not a bad headache. I like mostly every song on here besides Touched. Favorite track on here has to be Come In Alone. Love that song. Alright, top 25. I guess it doesn't mean anything because there's only 40 albums here, but I have The Smiths' The Queen Is Dead. I just think sometimes Morrissey's low-key annoying. No, I'm just playing, but like, I don't know. I have my favorites on here, and I go back to my favorites, and that's kind of all I do. Favorite track on here is I Know It's Over. I love that song. It's like, the more he feels like his life is actually ending, the more desperately he sings, like trying to just like cry for help. I really do love that song. It is incredibly beautiful. Probably one of my favorites I have reacted to so far. A lot of the other songs on here, I don't want to call forgettable, but I don't know, I just don't be going back to it. Coming in at 24, I have Portishead's Dummy. This is my most recent review, I believe. Honestly, dude, I put it this high because of Glory Box. Glory Box, Roads, those two songs, man, chef's kiss music, bro. I guess there were some aspects to this album that I didn't really find enjoyable, but I'm willing to overlook it because I just liked those songs so much. Those aren't the only two songs I like, but I found myself going back to those ever since I listened to it probably the most. Coming in at 23, I have The Strokes' Is This It? I love this album. I found it incredibly consistent. Just front to back, every song just kind of gave me the same feeling. But then again, when it comes to that, it's a little too consistent. You know what I'm saying? So for that, it's kind of hard for me to kind of find some standouts and pick a favorite here. But if I did have to pick one, I'd probably pick Hard to Explain. I loved his vocals on that. They just felt so harrowing. Coming in at 22, I have Wilco's Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, another very recent one. I just felt so much comfort in this album, even despite it even being a breakup album and, you know, the topics of the songs not really being too happy. I feel like they kind of just put me in a nice little relaxed state, you know, kind of just being okay with everything going wrong. My favorite song off this has to be Ashes of American Flags. I found that song incredibly underrated. Just incredibly underrated. I love the energy behind that track a lot. Jesus, Etc., also another great one. Coming in at 21, I have Fishman's Long Season. Even though this album is one song, I have listened to it again a lot since. It's just kind of a dream. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like a fever dream, but a good fever dream. The instrumentation I felt was just amazing as well. This album just felt so watery and just so kind of like blissful. You know, I can never imagine myself being in a bad mood, putting this album on and still being in a bad mood. Definitely want to go hiking to this album. And at 20, I have I have Death's Dynamic Shroud with I'll Try Living Like This. It's kind of weird. I found myself returning to this album way more than I thought I was gonna. A lot of the aspects definitely aren't for me, but I just admire like the sample usage. I don't know, man. Vaporwave just has a soft spot in my heart. Favorite track on here has to be CD Player Part 3. And my favorite thing about this album has to be just the samples of anime. You know what I mean? It's incredibly based. Coming in at 9 is Yes's Close to the Edge. John Anderson's vocals are just brain melting, to be honest. That one moment on And You and I, which is my favorite track off here, has to be honestly the closest I've ever been to an orgasm. Coming in at 18, I have The Microphones, The Glow Part 2. Just gut-wrenching. You know, just absolutely gut-wrenching this whole album was. And I just, you know, so many times where I wanted to stop listening to it because I listened to this at like midday time and I was like, man, this is going to fuck up my vibe the rest of the day. And it did, but I couldn't stop listening to it. This album had a very established theme to it. Just, I don't know. There's something so recognizable about the sound of this album, and I find so much comfort in a lot of these songs as well. My favorite track off this project has to be Headless Horseman, without a doubt. I love the songwriting on that song, and I love the melody behind it as well. Coming in at 17, I have Boards of Canada's The Campfire Head Fizz. This album grew on me. This album grew on me a lot, especially the track Peacock Tail. Something so, I don't know. There's just something so, like, incredibly calming, you know, about that song. Someone put in the comments that this album was just kind of like fragments of an acid trip. If so, I totally get that, and I can see it. Songs like Day Van Cowboy as well, just an album to vibe to. I love it a lot. It's very good. Although a lot of the songs I don't find myself returning to. Tears from a Compound Eye, also great. Coming in at 16 and 15, I'm going to put these two albums together, are both Sweet Trip albums. Hold on, let me get something real quick. I bought Velocity Design Comfort on CD like immediately after I heard this album, just because the moments, although a lot of moments on this album I was very uncomfortable towards and very confused by, the highs were highs, and I loved the album cover as well. I don't know, I'm kind of biased because this came out the year I was born, and I fucked up because I remember buying it and I was like, man, I'm probably going to end up liking the second album that I reacted to more. And then I did. Favorite song off this album has to be Chocolate Matter. That song is just a fucking bop. And I had that shit on repeat after I listened to this album. But yeah, I did end up liking the second album more. You Will Never Know Why. Two songs, Milk and No Words to Be Found, I still listen to on a very frequent basis till this day. I said till this day like I didn't like react to that album like 2 months ago, but I'm just gonna ignore that. I also had a lot less what the fuck am I hearing moments a lot on You Will Never Know Why as well. So I guess that kind of made me like it a little bit more, I guess. Although I would say the highs on Velocity Design Comfort are better. I would consider the You Will Never Know Why the more accessible album and the more enjoyable one. Coming in at 14, I have Bjork's Vespertine. This is my first introduction to Bjork, and it absolutely just blew me away. Her vocals on every song are just like, you know, I never really thought a person could do that, and I never really thought a person would do that on a song. And, you know, she did it. A lot of the song meanings as well, I just found, you know, so cool and so great. Favorite track has to be It's Not Up to You. Just a great track about how, you know, you're not really in control of a lot of the things that you do or what happened to you during the day. Just a song you can just vibe to and, you know, dance a little bit. I also love Pickin' Poetry as well. especially the production on that song. It's just that song is amazing. Coming in at 13, I have Interpol's "Turn on the Bright Lights," post-punk revival. I like it a lot. Untitled, amazing song to listen to. This is definitely a night album, a late night drive kind of album. Favorite track on here has to be "Obstacle 1." I understand that that's the most popular song, but it's my favorite song. So yeah, very catchy song. At 12, I have Joy Division's "Closer." Love this one as well. Very gut wrenching. I'm never in a good mood after listening to this. Big inspiration too. I actually sampled Atrocity Exhibition's drums on my own song, which don't listen to, it sucks. But Ian Curtis's vocals on here are very depressing, and they're great. They're great. They're so relatable, honestly. Favorite track on here has to be The Eternal. I just love the slow melancholy and vibe behind that song. Tracks like Decades 2, Heart and Soul, 24 Hours, all great songs. And it really did grow on me since the first listen, for sure. Coming in at 11 is King Crimson's "In the Court of the Crimson King." Blew my mind when I first listened to it. I mean, this was the first prog rock album I've ever listened to. I think it's like my most popular video as well. Bro, I got so much hate for hating on Moonchild, and yes, till this day, I don't care for the little improv. I don't care for it. But I do have to say though, I think Epitaph might be one of their best songs, and my favorite song off this has to be "I Talk to the Wind." That song had me in a chokehold for like 2 weeks after I listened to it. 21st Century Schizoid Man, also amazing. The final track too was also just so intense and just incredible. I mean, honestly, just a great display of music, to be honest. All right, now we're in the top 10. All right, this is pretty serious. Okay, coming in at 10, I have Have a Nice Life's "Death Consciousness." This album fucked me up badly. I'm ashamed with how much I've returned to the songs on here as well. I really don't want to talk about how much I've went back to the songs on here, to be honest. I like how they made something so amazing just on such a small budget as well. I love how there's like a whole story and like booklet behind this album. My favorite song that I have discovered on this channel so far is on this album. It is Holy Fucking Shit 40,000. Dude, you can go back to the video. I freaked out when I heard that song for the first time. The track also, One Quick One. Bro, you really gotta mow the lawn right now. The track One Quick One, before The Eternal Worm Devours Connecticut. Such a great song to think to. Not Happy Thoughts, but just a good song to think to. Earth Mover, amazing. Love that song as well. I love the drums on this album, especially like on Hunter and Blood Hail. Just very brutal songs and beautiful as well. Just the meaning behind a lot of them. The track I Don't Love must be one of the most gut-wrenching and sad songs I've ever heard. And yeah, this album is just great. Coming in at number 9, I have Sigur Ros's Sigur. I don't know. I'm not going to pronounce anything. I'm not going to bother. This might be one of the best first album listening experiences I've ever had. I was absolutely blown away by everything on here. I've never been so entertained for an hour in like 11 minutes. Every track was perfect. I mean, this album truly felt like a 10 out of 10 for me. I've went back to a lot of the songs on here as well. Favorite track off this album has to be I'm going to try saying it. Safenji Englar. I feel like this album is just an incredibly important piece of music. And that's all I can say about it. I mean, I'm just speechless behind everything on here. Coming in at number 8, I have The Velvet Underground and Nico's self-titled album. So many catchy songs on here. And a lot of the songs just hit me emotionally as well. Tracks like I'll Be Your Mirror, which is easily my favorite song on here. Nico's vocals on that song just melt me every time. Femme Fatale, also a great song. Sunday Morning, amazing. Heroin, I love Heroin. Not the drug. Coming in at 7, I have Neutral Milk Hotels in the Airplane Over the Sea. This album made me buy a copy of Anne Frank's diary. I'm not lying, I have it in my room. And I would go grab it, but I already went inside to grab the CD, and I'm not getting up again. The lyricism on this here, the songwriting on here has to be my favorite out of any album that I've done so far. Just the metaphors and everything on here is just so incredible to me. My favorite track on here has to be King of the Carrot Flowers Part 1. Just the way this album kicks off with that song is just, you just know. You just know that this album is going to have an emotional effect on you. Coming in at number 6, I have Boards of Canada's Music Has the Right to Children. I just loved the nostalgia that this album made me feel, front to back. Tracks like Olsen, Roar Jabiv, Wildlife Analysis, that song is such a brief song. But I don't know, this album just makes me want to reflect in such a happy way, you know what I mean? It makes me want to just buy, a van, renovate it and just drive out into the country and just stay there forever. I just want to be a kid again. I just want to be a kid again. Bro, if these bugs keep, flying... Coming in at 5 is Joy Division's Unknown Pleasures. This album must have changed my sexuality in some way, I swear to God. Dude, everything about this album, to be honest. I'm kind of speechless towards it in general. It just changed my view of music, to be honest. This is my first introduction to post-punk, and bro, it just had a crazy effect on me. Favorite track would have to be either New Dawn Fades, which is honestly underrated, and or She's Lost Control. The drums on She's Lost Control is incredible. Ian Curtis's vocals on this album, I don't know. Maybe since this is my first introduction to them, is why I love it so much. Every song in this album I've returned to. You know what I mean? At some point I thought Disorder was my favorite song. At some other point I thought Shadow Play was my favorite song. Something about this album is just like, I don't know, it's so attractive. It just makes mental illness sound so good. Yeah. Coming in at number 4, I have Gio Gotti. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about why I have this album so high up. It's just like it's just so terrifying, but I just kept like going back to like the comfortable songs on here. Like The Smallest Weird Number is probably my favorite song on here. I just find so much comfort in it. You know, tracks like that, Dandelion, Music is Math, Over the Horizon Radar. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of songs on here that I, wouldn't touch with a 20-foot pole. Tracks like, You Can Feel the Sky, genuinely terrifying. But even a lot of the scary songs on here, I found myself returning to those as well. Songs like The Devil's in the Details, Gyroscope. And I don't know, this album is just something to think about. You know what I mean? It's not just a piece of music. It really feels more than that. And I don't know why I find it so alluring. I really am confused as to why I even put this album this high. But there's something about this musically that just, I can't escape from. Coming in at number 3, is Mac DeMarco's This Old Dog. Every song on here just made me feel just good about life, to be honest. It made me accept just bad feelings and everything like that. It struck a very emotional chord with me. Favorite track on here has to be Moonlight on the River. There's also so many other contenders. On the Level, One More Love Song, For the First Time, Still Beating. Dude, it's every song on here. Dreams from Yesterday. It's just incredible. And I know you're probably thinking like, oh, what the fuck? He put all these bands lower than some indie singer. Yes, I did. Because I don't know. I've just replayed this album so many times since. Coming in at number 2 is another one I bought on CD. Is Brian Eno's Another Green World. Just the artistic vision behind this album, because I did a lot of research on this album after I listened to it. It's just so amazing to me. I remember for like 3 days I went on like a music hiatus. This is a good story. I went on like a music hiatus for like 3 days. I didn't listen to anything. And like the first song I listened to again was Brian Eno's I'll Come Running, which is my favorite song on this album. And I remember, I don't know why, I played that song and dude, I started crying. Just this album just hits me emotionally like so much. Songs like The Big Ship, Everything Merges with the Night, St. Elmo's Fire, just peak music in my opinion. I just find this album so creative, just so creative. So coming in at number one is Souvlaki by Slow Dive. This album, man, every song on this album I cannot escape from. Like if an album was my soulmate, I think this might be the one. I can't even name a favorite song. I can't even name a favorite song. I mean, maybe Allison, maybe, but then I feel like that's like a basic pick. I love All Together as well. Souvlaki, Space Station, Sing, 40 Days, Dagger. I can't even begin to describe this album. I don't understand how critics hated this album when it came out. I really don't. Just the lyricism behind this album and how the main vocalist like was going through a breakup with somebody in the band during the making of this. Like that as song inspiration is crazy. Like that's like amazing. Like that takes heartbreak music to a whole nother level. Like imagine writing a song about somebody that you're in the band with, and the person that's in the band is also working on the song. Like, what the I don't know. Give this album a listen if you haven't. So, guys, that's the list. I hope you enjoyed. I try to make this video as brief as possible because I don't want to talk about these for longer than I have to. I'm not the most articulate when it comes to displaying what I like. So this is just kind of a little fun video for me. It's not to be taken too seriously. It's not to be talked about in depth. I just kind of wanted to give my feelings on how I feel about the music that I've listened to so far. And yeah, that's it. So thank you for all the support. Check out my music if you haven't. There's more to come with that. I am an aspiring musician. That's kind of why I started this channel. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the video, and I will catch you in the next one.